let's do the review for final. And we know what we have been learning is to solve quadratic equations, right? In the meantime, we learn the polynomials in fraction forms, which is rational expressions and rational equations, right? Rational expressions, equations means what? In fractions, right? So we also learn the crazy numbers, right? The radicals. And to do the basic operations as subtract, multiply, divide in solving radical equations. Mainly is for solving quadratic equations, right? We review some of those. So let's do the fraction things. What do you need to do? You often get confused with things like this. Okay, like your third one is 5x plus 2 plus 2 over, right, equals x minus 1, x minus 3. What's the difference between those two things we expect you to do? Mainly is what? You have equations here, right? Equations means what? You have to find the answer for x. Right? But here you don't have an equation, then what do we need to do? So you see, two fractions. So what do we need to do is to make it simpler, just one fraction. Okay, it means simplify. That's the difference. So you need to kind of pay attention to what do you try to achieve. Okay, so for this one, we need to simplify. Simplify means what? Just write like this. One simple equation, simple fractions, right? Then we need a what? LCD. Before we can do LCD, we need to have what? Prime form, right? So then you need to know how to factor. So this is a binomial. Can we break down? Because it is what? The difference of two squared. So that would be x plus x minus, right? Which is 3, right? Then this one, trinomial, how do you break down? AC method. But leading coefficient is 1, so you can just do xx there. Then two numbers multiplied together is 3, added together is 4. That would be 3 and 1, right? So that's your prime forms for the denominator. Then you have to write it in LCD form. So what should we have? X plus 3, x minus 3, and x plus 1, right? So that's your LCD, right? Then for this one, what is extra? X plus 1. Then for this one, you have to multiply the extra is what? X minus 3. Then we say if you do it on the denominator, you also need to do it with what? Numerator, right? For x1. So that's 1, that's 5x, right? So now we have LCD form. Then put them together, that would be x plus 1 minus what? You have to do 5x times, that's x plus 1, x minus 3. Okay? So you combine the numerator. I didn't do it directly to multiply them out because you were messed up, because that's a minus. When you distribute, you have to consider that becomes what? X minus 1 minus what? 5x squared plus 15x. You often forget, first one you would do minus 5x squared, but you often forget you have to distribute your negative and negative as well, right? Then we simplify, then combine like terms, negative 5x squared plus 16x plus 1, right? Then over the LCD. Then you have to take a look at the top if you can break down more and cross cancel with the denominator, right? Then you take a look, multiply together is negative 5, add together is 16. We cannot do it. So that would be a what? A prime polynomial, right? So we cannot simplify anymore. That would be your answer, right? Okay, for the second one is what? You have fractions over fractions. We call it what? Complex fraction, right? So complex fraction is not as complicated as we think, because if you interpret this line becomes what? Division. Then if you look at that way, would that be much easier, right? 2 over x over 4x plus 2, right? Becomes two fractions divided. So how do we do division for the fraction? So you simplify each one, then you divide them. It means what? Multiply is reciprocal. So let's make one fraction. So for this one, that would be what? X plus 2 and x, right? That's your LCD, x plus 2 and x. Then this one, x is extra. This one is x plus 2 is extra, right? Then multiply the original one. So what do we have? Then we combine them, will be x plus 2 and x. Here would be x minus, right? If you do it directly, don't forget your negative sign. You have to distribute for both of them, will be 5x minus 10. Is that right? So what do we have here? That would be negative 4x minus 10, right? Then denominator would be this. Okay? Then same thing for that. 2 over x minus 4x plus 2. So your LCD would be this, right? Minus x plus 2. Then what do we have? So this one, x plus 2 is extra. This one, x is extra, right? Then multiply the original, that's 2, that's a 4, right? Then we put them together, what do we have? So that would be 2x plus 4 minus 4x over x and x plus 2, right? So that would be negative 2x plus 4 x plus 2, right? Okay, so we make an individual fraction, just like those, you simplify them. So what we have now is negative 4x minus 10 over x plus 2 divided by negative 2x plus 4x plus 2, right? Then for division, we multiply its reciprocal times x plus 2, negative 2x plus 4, right? Then before we cross cancel, we need to do it in prime form, right? So is this a prime? Not really. You need to take a negative 2 out, right? Would be what? 2x plus 5, right? Okay, over x plus 2, right? Then times negative 2 out, x minus 2, right? Because the leading line is negative, so you do that. Now we can cross cancel the x plus 2. Anything else? Yes, negative 2 can cross out. Then what do we have? That would be 2x plus 5, x minus 2, right? That's how we do complex fraction. So one complex fraction question, you will have what? Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Everything in there for you to simplify and practice. Okay? Next one, let's try to solve the rational equations. Okay, so next one, 5 over x plus 2 plus 2x minus 3 equals what? X minus 1, x, right? So when we try to solve it, and because it's a rational equation, it means what? It is a fraction, then the denominator cannot be 0, right? When you find the answers, you better check the restrictions as well. So you know x equals some kind of numbers, some numbers, except which one you cannot use, negative 2 and what? 3, right? That's what you need to check. Then how should we start to solve the equations? Remember what to do? Right? Make a single fractions, make each side simpler, then go from there, right? So you have to write LCD forms. So that's x minus 3, right? Plus x plus 2, x minus 3. So your LCD is what? X plus 2 and x minus 3, right? And you have this one is extra. Then this one, this is extra. This one, this is extra, right? So you have to multiply the extra. So this is x plus 2, this is x minus 3, right? So multiply by 5, that's 2. That one is multiply the original x minus 3, right? Then we make each side simple fractions. That would be what? 5x minus 15 plus 2x plus 4, right? And, oops, plus this one is, oh, we already combined them already, right? So equals plus 2x minus 3. Then the top one, you have to FOIL, right? That would be x squared plus x minus 2. You should be able to figure out. Then what do? Still fractions, but at this point, they have what? Same denominators, right? So we can just ignore it, right? Because you cannot make the denominator 0. So what do we have here? We have 7x minus 11, right? And this side is what? X squared plus x minus 2, right? So we change the rational equations becomes the simple one, which is what? Not a standard form, it is a quadratic equation, right? So we write it in standard form. Okay, so what do we have? Would be x squared minus 6x plus 9. Is that right? Now we have a standard form of the quadratic equations. So what should we do? Factor it, right? So trinomial, we use what? AC method. You should be able to do that, right? Equals 0. Then if it equals 0, that means each one has to be 0, right? So by 0 product property, so your x is what? 3, both are 3. Now we need to check, can we circle the answers? See the restrictions? So both are extraneous. So if it's extraneous, you still have to tell us the final answer. What is your x? No such a thing. So we say what? No solutions. Right? Next one. What's the difference between this question and number 3? Number 3 is more complicated, right? So we make a single fractions. Then for both sides, then we can eliminate the denominators that way. We can do the same thing for this, use LCD. But we say because it's a proportion, we can just use a shortcut, right? What is your shortcut? One single fraction and one single fraction, we can just do the hot dog method, right? Cross multiplying, right? In the meantime, because they are fractions, we need to pay attention for the restrictions, right? So x equals what? Some numbers except which one? That would be -4. That would be what? 0, right? Then we do cross multiplying. So x times x is x squared. 2 times x plus 4 is 2x plus 8, right? Then we write it in standard form. right? So that would be x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0. Is that right? Okay, then we factor it. X minus 4, x plus 2 equals 0, right? Then you do zero product property. Each one can be 0. Then you solve your linear equation here. X equals -2, right? Because they are fractions, we need to check. Can we use x equals 4 against your restrictions? Yes. Can we use -2? Yes. So that would be your answers. Okay? So we just reviewed what? Rational expressions, then simplify them becomes a single fraction. Or we solve the rational equations. Find your x. Then you need to pay attention to your restrictions. Okay? Let's do some crazy numbers. Then for crazy numbers, radicals, we said radicals, say 2/3, top one is what? Means power, then bottom one means what? The roots. So you can write x squared for the cube root. So if you have power, which is a fraction, it's similar to the radical numbers, right? So for the crazy numbers, you can also write it in the exponential form that way. So let's practice simplifying the crazy numbers in exponential form. Okay? Treat everything as a power. Then we use the whatever the exponential rule we use to simplify our powers, right? So power on power, like those, we can distribute. Then that would be what? 1/2 to the second power and x 1/3 to the second power times original this one over x half, right? Then 2/2 times 2 is 1, so that would be 4. Then x 1/3 times 2 is 2/3. That's another 2/3 here, and x half, right? Then when they multiply together, what do? We add our powers. That would be 4/3. Then divided by x and half, right? Then that's a product rule. If they do divide, we do what? Quotient rule. So that would be 4x to the 4/3 minus half, right? So then 4/3 minus half. 4/3 minus half would be 6/86 and 3/6. That would be what? 5/6, right? So that would be 4x to the 5/6. So you can just leave the answer in the power form. If you change to crazy number form, radical forms, you will write what? 4, that's x to the 5th power, take what? 6th root, right? That's how we simplify the crazy numbers in exponential forms. Okay, so you will have one of those questions on your final. You need to how to manipulate the exponents in a fraction style. Okay, then For the crazy numbers, radicals, we would do what? Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Also solving the radical equations, right? Okay, are they like terms so far? No, but you need to simplify before you can decide. So that would be what? 2 times 3 times 3. So that would be 3 square root 2, right? For this one. Then that would be the simplest form for here. Then this one would be what? 2, 2, 2. That's 8, 2. 16 times 3, right? For the square roots, then you need to find the root of square. Then 2 and 2 out would be 4. Then minus 4 square root of 3, right? Now we have to combine the like terms. Like terms means what? Same index and same radicand, right? So these two are the same. That would be negative 10 square root of 3 plus 3 square root of 2. That would be the simplest form, right? That's all you can do. Next one. So 7, 3 square root of 6, and 2 plus square root of 6. 2 terms times 2 terms, you do the FOIL, right? 7 and 2 would be 14. 7 times square root 6, that would be that, right? And this one is minus 6 square root of 6, right? Then minus this one, it would be 3 square root of 6 times 3 square root of 6. So then that would be 14 plus square root of 6, right? And last one, don't make a mistake, because square root of 6 times square root of 6. Don't give me square root of 6 and this. Don't do that, okay? Because square root of 6 times square root of 6 is what? 6, not the square root of 6, right? You often make a mistake there for some reason. So that would be 14 plus square root of 6 minus 18, right? So that would be negative 4 plus square root of 6. And that would be your answer. So we did what? Add, subtract, multiply, right? And you practice your divisions as well. Next one, we have 2x plus 3 equals x. So we have radical equations here. Then to solve it, we have to get rid of radicals before we can resolve it, right? Then square root, to do the opposite, you will take the square. Then you do one side, you do another side, right? Then those cross cancel out. Then you have 2x plus 3 equals x squared, right? Then we write, it becomes what? Quadratic equation. That's what we do in this class, solving quadratic equations, right? Then write it in standard form, right? So we have 0 equals x squared minus 2x minus 3. Then we factor it, become x minus 3, x plus 1, right? Then what do we have? X is 3, x is what? Negative 1. So another thing we need to check is what? Because they are crazy numbers, for those radical equations, we have to check to see if we can use the answer. Because square root inside of the x has to be what? Inside the radicals has to be positive number or 0. So there are restrictions. As long as you have situation which has restrictions, you need to check, right? When you check, you have to plug in the original. So it's 2 times 3 plus 3 is that 3, right? X is 3. So 2 times 3, 6 plus 3, 9 square root of 9 is what? 3. So it's okay. So we circle this. How about this one? X is -1. We plug in, right? 2 times -1 plus 3 is that -1. Then that's -2 plus 3 is 1. Is 1 equal -1? No. So we cannot use this for the answer. Okay. So we just review this to remind you for the radical equations, you need to check besides solving it. So we have another radical equations like this. This one is 2x plus 3 equals x. This one equals -3. You can do the same thing, then you check, and you will have same result. But for this one, you don't have to do it because any square root, if 9 square root of 3, right? If -9 square root of 3 is what? You cannot do it, doesn't exist. Regardless, whatever inside, you either have a positive number because that's a principal root or doesn't exist. You can never be a negative number. So we don't have to do it. You can just say, okay, x is no solution or doesn't exist, but you better say the reasons for it, because a square root of number cannot be what? A negative number, right? You can just say the reason is that, then you don't have to continue to prove it. Okay, then next one, 10, we are going to skip it for imaginary numbers. We don't cover that in this class, but you need that for your pre-calculus or calculus. So let's do our factoring, to review our factorings. Still remember what to do? I think so, right? Except you will forget about something. You look at this trinomial, then you cannot do AC method. Why? It looks very, complicated. But remember, we always do what first? So you need to check if you have done the GCF. Okay, so we have y, then we have 6x squared plus x minus 2. Right? Then it becomes much familiar. That's a trinomial with one variable. Then you can just do what? AC method, right? AC method, you should be able to find the two numbers and to do the grouping. Okay, you practice that. Make sure you do that yourself to get that result. Okay? Next one. And x4, right? So it doesn't look like a, quadratic equation, quadratic second degree polynomials. However, for this class, the purpose of this class, you should be able to do it, okay, to practice AC method. So your A is 1, C is maybe 36, right? This is your AC, your B is what? Positive 5. Then we want to find the two numbers. Multiply together is -36, add together is 5. So that will be 9 and 4. Which one is positive? So this one is positive, this one is negative, right? Then once we find these two numbers, then what do? You split the middle part to these two numbers, right? But it's x squared, you better put x squared there. So that would be x4 minus 36. Then what do? We do the grouping. Remember that? So that would be x squared plus 9, right? This one would be 4, then 4, x squared. Oops. If I have a minus 9, that means I cannot do it. That means there's something wrong, right? So what do? I look back. Oh, it's 9 minus 4. Then I have typo here, so I should have minus here, right? So if I have minus here, then I should have minus here, right? So I take a negative 4 out, I end up with what? X squared plus 9. Now I have the same thing, right? If you cannot do it, means something wrong. Somewhere we have typo or something else not right, right? So we have what? X squared minus 4, x squared plus 9, right? Sometimes you stop here. You need to continue. Also check to see if you can break down more if it's above, second degree. See, you can break down all the way to x, right? So this is a difference of what? 2 squares. So that will be what? Xx plus minus, right? That would be 2. Okay, how about this one? The sum of 2 squares we say is what? A prime. The difference of 2 squares, we need to break down more. Okay, so that will be our answers. Right? Okay. Let's review one more for the cubed things. Right? So we say there is a formula for what? A cubed plus B cubed, right? A cubed minus B cubed, right? You should be able to break down. So 64m cubed will be what? 4m to the third power, right? Then this one will be 3p to the third power. Then we'll have to use this formula. Remember this formula? Will be a minus b times what? A squared, opposite sign, plus ab plus b squared. Look at your yellow sheet. Okay, so to see the formulas, then we plug in your A becomes what? 4m, B becomes what? 3p. So that would be A minus B, 4m minus 3p, right? Then A squared. A squared, do you write the 4m squared? No, because A, for the whole thing, you need a square. Okay, so you need to have a 4m as a to take a square. Then this is a negative here, should be positive. Plus a times b, which should be 4m times 3p, right? Then plus b squared is what? 3p squared, right? You don't leave the answer there. You need to spell it out individually for each term. So you should write this one. 4m squared is what? 6m squared, right? Plus 12mp plus 9p squared. You can also check, multiply back, see if you can get back. If you didn't use parentheses, you will have 4m squared. 4 times 4 would be 16. We'll not go back to 64, right? 4 squared, 16 times 4, you can get back. Remember this? You will have one of those problems on your final, so practice that. Let's solve some quadratic equations. For the second degree quadratic equations, right? So use even root property. Means one side has a square, one side is a number. If you take a square root, so for this one, right, those cancel. Then you have this. However, can we have a negative number inside the square, a square root? No, right? So we don't have to do it anymore. So we just say P equals what? No solution. Because the inside of a even root cannot be a negative numbers. Okay? Or you can start at the beginning. You can say P has no solutions. Or you can do this way. You can say, oh, okay, P equals no solutions because what? Anything to the square cannot be a negative number. They are the same thing, right? You can just stop at the beginning, or you can use the even root property. You still end up the same. So, okay. Next one, we want you to practice the method of completing the square. Okay, you can just always use the quadratic formula to do it, right? But we are practicing the completing the square method. You need this for your 154 class. So how should we start for that method? We say you need to do this. Move the number to another side because you use the two terms to complete the square, right? So that would be your x. Then your number would be what? Half of a b. That would be positive 5. Then you need a third term to complete, right? The square. So that would be what? Plus 25. Then you do one side of the equation, you do the other side, right? So that would be 28. Then what should we do? You use the even root property, right? Take a square root, then you take a square root. Then we say you will forget about something, right? Oh, I forgot here as well, right? When we take a square root, we need to do what? Plus and minus sign, right? Don't forget that. Do what I say, don't do what I do here, right? Remember, even I colored it for you or write big for you, you will forget. Then, what do we have? X plus 5 equals what? Plus minus 28, square root 28. Then we need to simplify this to 2, 7, right? Becomes what? Plus minus 2 square root 7. Then, what is your x? So your x plus 5, you can do it directly, but if you cannot see it, and you need to write it out, right? For individual one, individually, plus and minus, plus, minus. Then you minus 5, okay? So your x is what? Negative 5 plus 2 square root 7, or x is what? Negative 5 minus 2 square root 7. right? So we practice what? With the try to find another black marker. Okay, so we practice the even root properties and also the completing the square method here. Okay, we're also going to do factoring or quadratic formula method. So let's look number 16. M squared plus 6m 24. It asks you to use the quadratic formula. Practice that. But if the quadratic formula is what? X equals what? The answer will be negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? Then we need to find out our ABC. So what's your A? 1, right? Invisible 1. B is what? 6. C is what? Not negative 4. Because you have to write it in standard form, right? Plus 4 on each side. So your C is positive 4. Remember that. So you plug into the formula. B is negative B is 6, right? Plus minus 6 squared minus 4 AC. A is 1, C is 4, all over 2a, right? Then what do we have? Negative 6 plus minus 6 squared is 36 minus 24, which is what? 12, right? Am I doing right? 4AC. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Where did I get that? It's a 16. So that's 20. Okay? Double check your numbers. And 20 is what? 2 times 2 times 5, right? So we need to simplify, become negative 6 plus minus 2 squared of 5 over 2. Right? Then we write it individually, become negative 6 over 2 plus minus 2 squared of 5 over 2. Then the answer should be what? Negative 3 plus minus squared of 5. If we use the formula to do it. Okay? So we practice the square root property method and completing the square, also the formula. All right, and next one, 6x squared minus 7x plus 5. We might have those problems they solve by method of your choice. Most of you will use what? Quadratic formula, right? So we will write it this way, standard form, but I get used to just do the factoring first if I can. Okay, that would be quicker. But most of you will like to use quadratic formula. So AC would be negative 30, added together is 7. Do I have two numbers? 30, that would be what? 10 and 3 will work, right? That would be negative here, positive here. So I will just do AC method. So I will split the middle part, become negative 10x plus 3x, right? And carry out those two. Then what do I have? By grouping, GCF would be 3x here, would be 2x minus 5, right? Those have nothing in common, so GCF will be 1. With positive, leading one is positive, so it's positive 1, right? Oops, what's wrong? 3x minus 5, 2x minus 5. What I was thinking, something not right because I mean to take a what? 2 here. 6 and 4. I should have 3 here, right? When you find out something are not matched, means, we had, mistakes early on, okay? So then 2x plus 1, 3x minus 5 equals 0, right? Then by zero product property, I can have 2x equals 0 or 3x minus 5 equals 0. Then I will solve this, become negative half. This 1x would be 5/3. Okay? So that would be our answers. So we just review the what? Solving quadratic equations with all the methods we talk about in this class, right? Factoring, even root property, or by completing the squares, or by the quadratic formula. All right. We also learn some miscellaneous things in this class on your page 5. So we have 2 by 2, right? X equals 2y plus 3. Then we also learn graphing method. It's complicated because you cannot really pinpoint where do they meet. And we have what? Substitution method, right? Then we also have what? Addition method, elimination method, right? So, doesn't matter which method you do, then we said you should get the same answer, right? Same problem, same answer. Okay, we will not have different answers for those. So let's practice both. And for substitution means what? You substitute, right? For x, you can substitute in. So then x means what? Same thing as 2x is what? 2y plus 3, right? That's your x. So if you sub in here, maybe 2 times x becomes this, plus 5y equals 1, right? So we will combine 2 variables, 2 equations. Now becomes what? 1 variable, 1 equation. So we can solve that. Then we distribute minus 6 plus 5y, 1. Combine like terms, become y minus 6 is 1. So y is what? 7, right? But we need to find what? Both x and y's. So y is 7, you plug in 2y plus 3, so your x will be what? 7 times 2, 14, 17, right? So your answer is what? 17 and 7, right? That's the substitution method. So for your final, for your problems, usually your answers are good numbers, just to see if you still understand and remember it, okay? So if you get a not so good answer, like 2/13, that means something wrong. Okay, go back to check your work. Let's do another method, eliminations by additions. Okay, then for this one, this sub, you just sub in. Then you get a variable by itself. But to do the addition or eliminations, then you need to write it in standard form. So this one, you minus 2y on both sides, become x minus 2y equals 3, right? Then you decide which variable you are going to eliminate first. Okay, you say 2, if you eliminate y, you need 10, but eliminate x seems easier. All you have to do just multiply by 2. So that would be what? 2x minus 4y equals 6, right? Then you rewrite the top one and curly them together, right? Means you are going to work both of them together. Okay, then eliminate by addition. So if you add them, you can eliminate one variable. So you have what? Y equals 7, right? Then you plug in, you can just plug in here, same thing as here, then your x is 17, right? So your xy is 17, 7. Different methods, you should still have same answers. Remember those? Solving 2 by 2. Then you add them together, then simplify becomes one variable, right? So usually we make the complicated situation become simpler, then resolve it that way. Then for next one, G, number 19 and 20, we are going to skip it. Okay, not on your final. Same thing as the next one, then we skip those on your page 6. So we reviewed everything we have done in this class, the most complicated one. You probably still wanted to look back for your all exams, then see you still remember. Just take a quick look. If you remember it, that will be fine. If you don't remember those problems, you better practice again. Plus this review for the final paper. Okay, so that would be our last video for this class, and studied it to get ready for your final.